It's done. The 2024 spring semester is over, and my goodness, this has been such a transformative semester. I feel like I am stepping in to a new era of teaching and what it means to be a teacher, and I haven't felt like that since maybe I first started teaching. Hi, my name is Megan. I have been an ESL teacher in China for over 10 years, and welcome to Teacher Talk. This is just where we sit down with a cup of coffee and talk about all things teacher. Now, to be honest, this semester has been really crazy, and this might be a little bit of a different teacher talk. Usually I'm like giving advice, but I wanted to reflect on the things that I have learned and experienced this semester. So I looked online for some semester reflection questions, and I wanted to talk through them with you. Okay, so let's just start off with a fun first question, and that was, what was your favorite part of teaching this semester? And this is where I really feel like I can see how much I have changed as a teacher. Now, all of this didn't happen this semester. There really have been rumblings of it throughout the last few semesters. Here in China, we had COVID prevention measures for 3.5 years. So for 3.5 years, I was doing either completely online or some type of hybrid. And now that that time has passed, I realize that I'm getting back into quote unquote normal teaching, and I'm feeling those shifts. So when I think about my favorite parts of teaching this semester, one of the things I really loved was the fact that I let go a little bit. I wasn't as worried about all of the chaos that was happening around me. I wasn't worried about making the perfect lessons. And I think a part of that is the fact that I was fully in the classroom. I wasn't doing hybrid teaching at all. And for us, our version of hybrid teaching was teaching students in the classroom and also teaching online at the same time. Or we would be in class 1 week and at home the next week, and then in class 1 week and home for 2 weeks. And it just felt like I was constantly trying to catch up when it came to how the lessons were conducted. I really was able to just be in the classroom and be present with the students, and I really just let go of a lot of my perfectionist tendencies because I had to. This semester was maybe one of the most stressful that I've had because of a lot of personal things. I am doing my PhD. I started content creation. I am planning a wedding. My husband had some health problems. There was just so much going on this semester. I one time heard someone talk about the problem with being a perfectionist. In the example of being a teacher, let's say you spend 2 hours on creating your lesson and it is just, 95% good. Then you spend an extra hour getting that 5% from 95 to 100. And to be honest, you got from 0 to 95 in 2 hours. There's not really that big of a return to spend an entire hour on 5%. And I remember hearing someone explain it like that to me. And I really feel like that rang true this semester, because even though I knew in the back of my mind the little details that I wanted to add to really bring the lesson up to 100%, when I went to the classroom and when I taught the class, I realized those weren't necessary. Sure, they might have made the class a tiny bit better. It might have been 5% better, but for the amount of effort and time I was going to spend on that 5%, it just wasn't worth it. The students had a really great lesson. They learned a lot. They enjoyed learning. They were able to learn everything they needed to learn at 95%. And so I let go of a lot, and it also really just helped me be more present in the classroom. It helped me focus on the 95% that I did have and focus on honing those things throughout the week as I taught the lessons to make that 95% as good as it could be. You good? How about we sleep, okay? Instead of losing our minds. Okay, so I may or might not have just jumped on a little soapbox there, but really it helped me so much to just focus on the students. One of my favorite moments every week was on Tuesday when my class number 8 would come in, and I would be sitting at my desk, filling out all the attendance forms, making sure everything was perfect, and the students would come in and they were so energetic and so happy, and they would like bounce into the room, and they're all talking about what they did that weekend, and they're talking about the concert they want to go to during the summer, and they're like, Megan, how are you? How was your weekend? And their energy like pulled me out of writing down the attendance of the last class, and just helped me really focus on the students. And I found so much joy in this semester when I spent more time thinking about the students and being present in the class rather than having to worry about online and hybrid and how is the homework going to be submitted and did I make this lesson plan perfect. It was really such a joy. The second question is, what went especially well this semester? Hands down, I don't even have to think about it. Simplifying my grading process. What feels like overhauled my grading process this semester, and my goodness, why didn't I do this earlier? That's what's so crazy about being a teacher, is that even after 10 years, you're going to look back and find so many better ways to improve how you do things. And so I used to be really, again, perfectionistic when it came to my grading process. And instead, I kind of leaned into what I know. I leaned into my intuition. I leaned into the fact that I have been a teacher for 10 years and I can simplify the grading process so much. I used to write down a tentative score or a tentative range for the students while they were giving their presentations. So if John is up there giving a presentation, I would write down like, okay, maybe he gets a 90 to a 93. And I would say things like, well, his pronunciation was a 90, but his vocabulary was more like a 93. But his presentation skills and his intonation is a little bit more like a 92. And then I would come home and I would look at all of this data that I had written down and I would hem and haw over what the appropriate score would be. After 10 years of teaching, I do know what the score is. So when John is up there, I really challenged myself this semester to just write down the score. I also really stuck to the rubric as well. You know, if students were 15 seconds short on their time, they got 1 point taken off. If they were 30 seconds short, they got 2 points taken off. And it helped simplify the grading process so much. This has been the most relaxing last week of the semester. And I think one of the reasons is the fact that I simplified my grading process so much, which has really just helped expedite the entire final paperwork process. The next question is, what was the most challenging part of teaching this semester? And honestly, I don't think it was the students. It was a lot more of the administration. And so this is a subject that I'm a little bit hesitant to talk about because I don't know how to talk about it. When you are an international teacher in China, across the board, I'm not just talking about any one school in particular, you're not really considered to be a real teacher. A lot of times you are in your own department, you don't interact with the local teachers, you don't go to the local meetings. It's very much like you are in a separate department compared to all the other local teachers. And so this semester I stuck my neck out and I asked for a raise because essentially for the last few years I've been doing the work of about 4 foreign teachers. I haven't been teaching oral English, spoken English. I've been teaching advanced writing. I've been teaching reading. I've been teaching listening. I've been teaching marketing. I've been teaching business English. I've been teaching a lot of these more serious subjects that require so much time in lesson prep. They require me to do a lot of learning. They require me to totally revamp the lessons. A lot of times I don't even have a textbook. So I'm creating the curricula completely by myself. And when I talked to my school about this, they essentially said, but you're an international teacher, and left it at that. And there were a couple of other things that happened that were a little bit smaller, but it just left me feeling like I had a bad taste in my mouth regarding the respect I was being given as part of the school community. Now, there are certainly some things that you can change, but there's also a lot of power that comes in realizing what you can't change as well, and being able to refocus your attention on different things. So to be honest, the students were great this semester. Like most teachers, I would probably say as well, a lot of the problems come from administration and come from dealing with red tape and dealing with the paperwork and dealing with your bosses. Those are often the pain points when it comes to being a teacher. One small thing I did notice with the students is that they were a little bit rambunctious slash not as respectful as students have been in the past. This is one absolute blessing of teaching in China. Students are brought up with this die-hard respect for teachers. Generally, you walk into the classroom being handed respect on a silver platter, and it's up to you to maintain it. But my students were freshmen this year and they had so much energy, but with that, they just had a lot of rambunctious energy. And a lot of times they would want to talk to their partner and chat while I was talking in class and while I was introducing things. And I constantly had to be reminding them like, hey, remember, we need to respect the teacher and we need to respect each other. We need to respect our classmates. You know, if I'm talking and you're talking, maybe your classmate can't hear me clearly. And I really wonder if that's a side effect from COVID, because we did so many years of online class. I wonder if they just have not had the practice of being in a classroom with other students. So that was an interesting thing that I haven't really noticed a problem with before, but it was okay. It was manageable. After, like I said, after 10 years of teaching, I know how to manage the classroom, but it required a little bit more effort for me to constantly be refocusing them. The fourth question is, what changes do I need to make moving forward for the next semester? Now, I don't have my schedule for next semester, and like I said, I've been doing the work of 4 foreign teachers. So I've been teaching a variety of subjects, but I think next semester I will be teaching a listening course, which is similar to one of the courses that I taught this semester. And if so, I really want to add in more speaking practice. It technically is a listening speaking course, and I just feel like this semester we leaned a little bit harder on the listening section than we did on the speaking. And so next semester I'd like to just balance that out a little bit more. The next question is, how did my teaching this semester reflect my own personal values and beliefs about teaching? If you ask me to boil down my beliefs about teaching, I believe so deeply that teaching needs to be practical and interesting. When students don't feel like it's useful, when students don't feel like it's interesting, I don't think they're interested in learning, especially for ESL and EFL students who have been studying the language for years. For most of my students, they've been studying for like 10 years, and they're either a little bit bored or they've plateaued. And so I find that when I can make it super practical, super applicable, and also really interesting and creative, the students respond better to it. So I did do a good job with that. I took a really boring textbook and I tried to make it as creative as possible. I gave them creative topics to discuss. I gave them creative homework assignments to add a little bit of fresh life into the lesson. And even one of my students, Matilda, said at the end of the semester, she told me, Megan, I don't know how you did this. Our textbook is so boring and somehow you made it so interesting. Okay, the next question is, what are some successes and what are you proud of this year? One second. Oh, that coffee is cold. I think a lot of these successes are things that I might have already mentioned. When I got into the classroom, I think I did a very good job of separating what was happening on the administrative side from what was happening in the classroom with my students. And I'm very proud of my professionalism in separating those two. I'm really proud of the fact that I simplified grading for myself, and I'm proud of the fact that I learned all of their names. I had over 300 students this semester and I learned all of their names. I've got them all down. When I look back over this semester, it was such a successful semester. The next question is, what are your fears for next year? I don't want to dwell too much on the fears, especially because I never know what I'm going to be teaching, but I think, like I mentioned, I will be teaching a listening course, and I taught book number 2 this semester, and which means I might teach book number 3. I don't know why, but book number 2 and book number 3 have exactly the same topics. Why did they do that? I don't know, but it makes it really, really boring because we're talking about space. And we talked about space last semester. We're talking about health, and we talked about health last semester. So it's very difficult to bring a new, fresh perspective, and it's also difficult to get the students on board and be interested because they feel like, I already know this, I already learned this. It's not true, but that's how they feel. The next question is, what did I learn about myself this semester? This is where I really can see the shift in who I am as a teacher. For years, I was not that confident in my teaching ability because I just felt like I didn't know what I was doing. Now that I've done my master's in education, now that I'm halfway through my PhD in education, I don't have those same fears. But because of the chaos of the last few years with constantly switching with COVID, and because every semester I taught something different, I did feel like I was constantly behind the ball and constantly trying to catch up. And this was the first semester that I went back to just teaching straight ESL. In the past, like I said, I've been focused on a lot of serious business courses or serious writing courses or reading courses. And it felt like such a return to come back and teach listening again because I took so many years away from traditional ESL. When I came back, I realized how much I've grown and how much I've changed and how much I trust my ability and I trust my intuition. When I think about the teacher I was a few years ago, I was still hesitant. I was still feeling like if the lesson wasn't at that 100%, then I was not making a good lesson and I was not a good teacher. And now I've realized that after all these years, I can make a 95% lesson and have it be excellent. And my 95% might be better than a lot of other teachers 100% just because of the amount of training and learning and time and effort that I have put in over the last decade. I also learned that I can really take up space and demand respect. I generally, historically, have not been the kind of person who takes up space and who stands up for herself. And I do feel like with all the administrative things that happened, like I mentioned before, that I was standing up for myself and I was asking for more space. And even physically, when I would go into meetings, I would sit, so I was taking up space. When I would walk into the classroom, I took up more space. When students started to act up, I immediately, without hesitation, brought them back into space. And I feel like for a couple of years, I was a little bit hesitant and I really stepped into that version of myself. And it's so freeing because instead of second guessing myself and hesitating, I'm just taking action and going for it, and it's brought a lot of peace of mind as well. Okay, the last question is, what do you want to tell yourself for next year? For next year, I want to continue along on this path of focusing on the students rather than focusing on that 5% of the lesson that I haven't finished perfectly. Focusing on my intuition and focusing on what really works in the classroom. Going back to the basics. Finding ways to make the class more interesting and more fun while building it on that solid foundation. A few years ago, I heard someone online say, "Today is as easy or as hard as I make it." And I want to take that thought process into next semester. The lesson can be as easy, as interesting, as creative as I make it. I have control over these things, and so I want to walk into the classroom with a little bit more of that trust in my intuition and a little bit more of that feeling of effortlessness. Of course, I know that teaching is not effortless, but I want to approach teaching, approach lesson planning, approach walking into the classroom with that feeling of effortlessness. So, thank you for hanging out with me today. I think I have blabbered on for a very long time. I'm chatty. I could be here for a whole nother hour talking about education because I'm so passionate about education. Thank you for joining this teacher talk. If you have any plans or any goals for the next semester, if you have any reflections, if you want to answer any of the questions, leave them in the comments down below. Next week, I fly back home to America and I'm already looking forward to creating a video about my goals for the next teaching semester. But I can proudly say at the end of the semester that it was a semester well done, a semester well taught, a semester well enjoyed, and I can't wait to start it all again next semester. But first, summer holiday. Let's have fun this summer. And always check out the website atlasteaching.com for more tips and ideas. You can also check back here for a weekly video. I will see you next time. Cheers.